My name is Katelyn Friedline, and despite everything you may have learned in your entire life, I'm here to tell you why you should indeed talk to strangers. First, I kind of want to start with a hypothetical. Which boss would you prefer? Would you prefer the stereotypical boss that we see in most media, Miranda Priestly type from The Devil Wears Prada, if those of you that are familiar, the my way or highway kind of person? Or would you prefer someone who, while they may not have lived the life that you have, they do try to empathetically understand where you're coming from? I think I can speak for most of us here in the audience when I say we'd probably prefer the empathetic boss. And while empathy skills are innate in us as people, they're also something that we need to constantly work to develop, and that's why we should be talking to strangers. Now, a little bit about me. My name, again, is Katelyn Friedline, and I'm an advertising major with a public policy minor, and I'm a senior here at the University of Alabama. I'm from a little town outside the city of Chicago that is still considered a suburb, but is about 15 minutes from cornfields. And why I may possibly be qualified to talk to you on this topic is I test as 99% extroverted on the Myers-Briggs test. And then also, I previously interned for the Rwandan Embassy to the United States in DC this past summer. And if you're wondering who that beautiful woman in the middle is, that is the ambassador herself. So, why should we talk to strangers? The big thing is that talking with strangers allows us to develop our ability to work and play with people that are fundamentally different than us. And when we are engaging with those strangers, there's 3 important points that we need to remember. So first, if you want to have a successful conversation with someone you don't know, you first need to make them feel as though they are heard, so that you're not just waiting for them to talk, so that you can say whatever it is that you wanted to say. Instead, you need to be actually making sure that they know that you are indeed hearing what they're saying, that then you're second, listening to actually what they are telling you, and then you are processing that information and trying as best as you can to understand it. And first, I have one story that relates to just understanding life experiences that are different than ours. And that happened when I was in DC this summer. I rode the metro a lot. And I got the opportunity to hop on the subway, and I sat down next to a man in a very nice suit reading the paper. And he looked like someone who absolutely did not want to speak to anybody in that car. So of course I complimented him on his glasses. And as we had a conversation about fashion and how a broken clock is right at least twice a day, he started talking to me about his career and how he got started in law a little bit later in life than usual, but still found success in representing CEOs and politicians. And we started to talk, and he told me about how now in his late 60s, he's starting to consider retiring and how scary that is, and how much he's wondering how he'll begin to quantify success without the typical measuring stick that is our careers, and what hobbies he would pick up, and what is he going to do with all of his free time. And I bet you're wondering, how long was this train ride? It was 3 stops. And after those 3 stops, I got to learn a little bit more about what it's like to be afraid to retire, even though I'm only 22 years old and I haven't even started my career yet. And then on this topic of actually understanding and listening to the people that talk to us, I had an incident that happened, not incident, but a wonderful opportunity that happened while I was here in Tuscaloosa. Last year during the government shutdown, I was at the Walmart on Skyland, as many of us college students on a budget are often to be. And there's a woman in front of me with her 2-year-old son, and I started to ooh and ah over her beautiful baby because I'm a sucker for kids of any age. And as I started to ask her the questions while playing peekaboo of, oh, how old is he and everything, she mentioned that it had been a stressful shopping trip. And I said, oh, has he been like fussy or anything? She goes, no, we are on food stamps. And because of the shutdown, we've gotten less funding. And I've had to spend this trip picking what things we actually need. And she started to, and I obviously immediately was like, oh, please, let me buy your groceries. And she said, I don't need that from you. That's not what I want. She said, what we have is fine, but it is nice to just talk to someone about it. And so I stood there and I listened as she told me the struggles of having to pick things that he needed over the things that she needed, and how she would make sure that he was full, clothed, and happy, and she would starve, and that was fine. and how terrified she was of how much longer that shutdown might go on and what that would mean for their tiny family. And as I walked away and said goodbye to her son, she thanked me and said, it's nice to be able to have an adult to talk to about this. She's like, I can talk at him, but he doesn't really get it. And it's those moments then that I feel so grateful to get the opportunity to glimpse into a life experience that I haven't lived. I don't know what it's like to have to pick what things to buy at the grocery store for my child versus myself. And it's those moments that allow me to develop greater skills in empathy. And finally, as we're talking to strangers, we need to be retraining where we find value. So often here in college, we're taught that the only time that we should talk to strangers is for networking. You need to walk up to the most powerful person in the room and see where they can get you. I say instead that there is inherent value in the life experiences of people that we don't know by virtue of the fact that they are not our own. And if we begin to see that value of life experiences that we haven't lived, we will be better prepared to be empathetic and engaged leaders. So how does this impact you? Well, as we are in college and graduating, we are about to walk into the most globalized workforce of any generation before us. Our world is smaller than it has ever been. And oftentimes, as you enter into whatever career it is that you pursue, you will have to talk to people from Hong Kong, from Europe, from everywhere across the world. And they've lived lives that you don't know. And then also, in an article according to Forbes, 5 out of the 10 skills most desired by employers in 2020 are soft skills. They are adaptability, emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence, leadership, and collaboration. So, as we work forward, we need to be developing those skills in order to be a best suited candidate as we can as we're applying to our jobs, because I know that's what everybody kind of wants to get when they graduate. So you can say to me, well, social media connects me to friends across the globe. But the thing is something that I've learned in my advertising classes is all of these corporations that run these handy little apps that is indeed a screenshot of my phone, sorry about the notifications. Those people that run those corporations are in it to help their bottom line. And the thing is that their best interest is showing you information that you will enjoy. And the safest bet to do that is to show you things that you already agree with. So the thing is that while social media connects us, it can so quickly become an echoing chamber of things that we already know. And a story that I had that made me drastically reckon with this experience was when I was in DC, took a lot of Ubers. It's a metropolitan place. And as the extrovert that I am, I began talking with my Uber drivers. And that's how I met John, who is from Cameroon. And while I was working at the embassy, I always considered my niche to be East African politics, which I know is a niche, but very fun to me nonetheless. And so as I was talking to John, Cameroon is in West Africa, and I was like, oh, well, I don't know that much about it. Can you tell me about Cameroon? And he goes, well, there's a war going on right now, and I'm afraid for my family. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't know much about that. Can you send me resources? And he goes, yes, I'll take your number. I will send you resources. My Western mindset was expecting news articles from Huffington Post, Human Rights Watch, the like. A few days go by, I had not heard from John. And I said, okay, well, lost cause, I guess I won't hear. And then suddenly, my phone blew up with texts as John sent me firsthand accounts of the violence. I don't know if you guys have ever gotten dead bodies sent to your phone, but it's a little bit jarring. And so then as I scrolled through and saw footage of homes destroyed, crops and livelihoods decimated, families murdered, and as he explained, all he asked from me was, Katelyn, I need you to share this. I need you to tell other people because no one will listen to my voice. And so I took it to my bosses at the embassy, and I tried to move it up the chain as much as I could. And it was in those moments that I realized that I had been completely blind to something going on in the world because it wasn't something that I already knew about. And so finally, what could talking to strangers and engaging with those that are different than us look like in our world? Well, I know as I talk to my peers, most of you guys all want professors and bosses that make attempts to understand where you're coming from and at least try to get what it's like to be a college student. Well, if you take this time to build your empathy and cultural intelligence skills through talking to strangers, you can be those leaders that are empathetic and engaged, not only for the people that will eventually work for you, but for the people that you work for. And so finally, college is the perfect practice field for this, with a caveat for safety. Please, everybody, be safe. Don't just use common sense. Perfect. So, college is the perfect practice field for this. Never again in your lives will you be surrounded by 40,000 people that are your age and you already have at least 2 things in common with. You guys know what it's like to register for classes and how hectic that is, and you also know what it's like to walk around in Tuscaloosa in the rain. All things you can talk about. And the thing is I'm not telling you, I know most of you introverts have been panicking this entire talk. But the thing is I'm not telling you to hop on the metro and immediately begin speaking to the stranger next to you. All I'm saying is in your class, talk to the person sitting next to you, compliment their shoes, ask about an assignment that's due. If it goes horribly, you don't have to sit next to them again. You probably won't see them again. But the thing is that growth does not happen without discomfort. And you guys are here to get an education, and in order to be the best and prepared professionals leaving here. And so that includes not only paying attention in your classes, but also developing the skills it takes to be competent in the workplace. And so I say that if you aren't uncomfortable and actively making yourself uncomfortable in talking to strangers, then you aren't maximizing your education. And so thank you guys for coming. And if you want any advice on this, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. Feel free to email me. We'll get coffee.